definitely a lot of these Gravel teen kids, they have already, they have already meshed with the Vosh side of the spectrum. Like Dylan Burns, who I mentioned a few times already, who's very close friends with Vosh, advised him before my debate, coach him before my debate on the OPCW cover up. Dylan Burns is a streamer, but he was also one of the Gravel teen kids. So he literally helped run the Gravel campaign in some form or another. I think he was like a state director in Maryland, but obviously he has really, really terrible takes surrounding Syria, but also he doesn't even support the boycott, divest, sanction movement in Palestine. So it's like, how do you call yourself an anti-imperialist, but you don't even support like the basic tenets of like strategy and movements to support anti-imperialist ideology? And I'm sure there's more I could dive into, but again, I don't dedicate too much time to these characters because they're so ridiculous. But I do remember there was a time when like I thought I might debate Dylan, so I was listening to a little bit about what he had to say on his political background, and I was just like, no way. He just openly said he calls himself an anti-imperialist, but he doesn't support BDS. Like, what is this? So it's so ridiculous, and they've really unmasked themselves in a series of ways, and I think slowly but surely more and more people are going to be waking up to that. The response to my debate was incredible. I had so many people reach out to me and saying stuff like, look, I went in this debate expecting you to get destroyed, and you proved me wrong. And I was a Vosh fan, and now I've kind of woken up to a lot of the lies that I commonly see him putting forward.
Just going back to the Gravel teens, I don't know if you saw any of my reporting a couple of years ago, but I kind of proved repeatedly by having Mike Gravel on my show that his campaign was misrepresenting him over and over again, from hiding his endorsement of Tulsi Gabbard when he was actually endorsing both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, or either one for the presidency. They hid the Tulsi Gabbard endorsement, and I was the one who had to bring that to the light.
I still want to maintain my presence in the race by endorsing Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard. So I'll continue in that capacity. I believe that both campaigns will use me as a surrogate as time goes on here. So I'm very committed to them. There's nothing unusual about supporting two candidates when there's two offices open. One is for president, the other is vice president.
So when you say that you are endorsing both Bernie Sanders and Tulsi Gabbard, are you supporting one for president and one for vice president, or are you supporting either one to be president or vice president?
Either one. In other words, let's see what happens in the polls, and let's see what happens in Iowa and New Hampshire, and clearly the field will narrow down, and we'll see how Tulsi and Bernie play out as the field narrows.
Additionally, there was a letter that went out asking people to donate to Howie Hawkins' campaign before he was the Green Party nominee. That letter went out in Mike Gravel's name. I spoke with Mike Gravel. He didn't know who Howie Hawkins was at the time. Something else I wanted to ask you about today was Howie Hawkins. Are you endorsing him?
No, I don't know much about him, and so I haven't endorsed anybody else in that regard.
Do you know who Howie Hawkins is?
Well, he sent me some emails, but I haven't read them. I've just been so busy with so many emails that I get. So, to my knowledge, no, I haven't endorsed him, and I don't know what he represents in that regard.
Okay, because there was an email that went out from your campaign, or addressed from your campaign, that was asking people to donate to the Howie Hawkins campaign. Did you know about that email?
No, I didn't. And you have to understand that my campaign was run by teenagers, and on a couple of occasions they can endorse who they want as individuals, but they don't necessarily bind me on any endorsements in that regard.
In showing that Mike Gravel, because there was a misconception for a while that Mike Gravel was actually writing his tweets, that he was like the person tweeting on his Twitter account. I read Mike Gravel a tweet about troops leaving Syria where it's appeared as though he was quite upset about it. But in speaking with Mike Gravel, he was fully in support of that. It was completely the opposite.
And so I agree totally to pull the American troops out. It is not a loss of support of Kurds. The Kurds participated in the war in that area because of their own self-interest. We should have never been there to begin with. This is a regional problem that should be addressed by the regional players. We are not a regional player in that part of the world.
So I wanted to get your thoughts on this quote. This quote says, "There is no higher disgrace to America than the abandonment of the Kurds, fighters for freedom and independence, to the hard right forces of Erdogan. Every American should hang their head in shame." What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think we should hang our head in shame. I think we should hold our head high and bring home the American troops who have no business being there, period.
Do you know who said that quote?
Pardon me?
Do you know who said that quote?
No, who?
That was your Twitter account.
My Twitter account. Okay, well, this goes to prove that sometimes the kids that ran my campaign don't always have the same views that I have or haven't listened to me.
So, I revealed over and over and over again that these teens were misrepresenting what this great anti-imperialist voice was saying. And, now it's unfortunate that Senator Gravel is no longer with us and we can't really ask him about these things, but there's an institute in his name, which also, by the way, I also revealed that Mike Gravel was not really fond of having an institute, but he kind of got convinced into doing it, essentially.
I think my only concern is, of course, they came up with the idea of having an institute. I'm not enamored of that. The question becomes who's going to run the institute. And they assumed that it would be easy to find another couple guys to do what they're doing. And I've shared with them that that's not easy at all. The uniqueness of what they've done, I don't think is particularly replicable.
It's unfortunate that there's this institute out there who's putting out this, these tweets, which may or may not align with what he believed in his name. And there's also things that, he was very passionate about that I don't think they're going to talk about. For instance, Mike Gravel was very outspoken about having a second 9/11 commission. He talked about it quite frequently. The Gravel Institute will never, ever talk about that ever. So that's just one unfortunate thing that I see is this misrepresentation of facts from that side.
Yes, I agree with all of that, and I'm gonna have to go back and watch some of those videos because that was probably before I was as in tune with the political YouTube sphere as I am now. But it doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Again, I have listened to some of these kids talk when they were involved in the Gravel campaign, and they don't support BDS. They were pissed when Trump was removing troops from Syria, but they are. They continue to, Ivash and Dylan, they continue to leverage this claim that Trump removed all the troops from Syria and this was such a bad thing. They don't even know that we still have over 900 troops in the northeast of Syria. In addition to that, Trump was trying to remove the troops from Syria, and then his special envoy to Syria, James Jeffries, this horrendous neocon figure, he convinced Trump to negotiate upward of leaving 250 troops in Syria. But then when Trump was in the final days of his presidency in the lame duck session, James Jeffries came out, did an interview with Defense One, and told them in the interview that, yeah, we told them we were going to keep 250 troops there, but actually we have way more than that. And the LA Times reported there's over 900 troops there. We have natural gas firms that are over there that are based in Delaware, like Delaware LLCs that are in Syria, stealing Syrian oil and natural gas. We have multiple bases in the northeast of Syria that we've named after U.S. oil companies like Conoco. It's ridiculous. So that's what I'm saying when they actually don't follow this news. They don't follow foreign policy stuff because they continue to say, oh my God, this is so terrible. Trump removed all the troops and, You know, the Kurds get squashed again. They get brutalized again, which is, I mean, like, yes, the Kurds have gotten, you know, screwed over so many times throughout history. But they didn't remove the troops. Like, the troops are still there. They have quite a few troops there. So it's just, yes, I agree. It's disappointing to see them take the Gravel name and weaponize it to serve their imperialist ideology. They're usually, by and large, like, pretty decent, like the Gravel Institute, from what I've seen on domestic issues. But even sometimes, like, one of the videos they put out was Emma Vigeland. They had Emma Vigeland on one of their videos talking about how there's like no rich history of socialism in the United States, like of proletariat action in the United States, which is just such an erasure of history, right? There's so much working class history and organizing in the United States, and all you have to do is like read one book to learn that. You could literally go read like the People's History of the United States and learn that most of what Emma Vigeland insinuated in that incorrect. There is a longstanding history of working class solidarity and organizing in the United States, and she just erased all of it. And again, you have to question, why is she doing that? Why is she leaving out all of this relevant history? It's the same reason that our teachers in grade school don't teach us about this history, because if people start learning about this, then they'll recognize that there is the capacity for change. They can organize. There is the, you know, possibility that they could, you know, have a better standard of living, and they can actually mobilize people on the ground to fight for progressive policies like Medicare for all.